Welcome to another episode of the Better SMB podcast, hosted by David Altina and me, Rob Bull. We're here to help small and medium-sized businesses like yours achieve more. Whether you're looking for practical tips, inspiring stories, or expert advice, we have you covered. Join us as we dive into the world of business, sharing insights and strategies to help you grow and succeed in your business. Now, before we get into this week's podcast, I have been told to remind listeners to hit the like button, follow, do all the things you should be doing to support our podcast. It is very much appreciated. Anyway, it's episode time. This week it is interview time again. We talk to Grant Johnson, co-founder of Rocketspark, which is New Zealand's premium website builder platform. We go into lots of different topics in this episode: the story of starting your own business, the challenges of looking after yourself as a business owner, measuring performance and the moving target that is, and what SMB owners can do to improve and up their digital game. And also bringing experts in to help your journey and being so much more successful than you can be all by yourself. Grant was such a great guest, sharing his thoughts and learnings over 10 years of running a high-profile business in New Zealand. As always, there are so much takeaways for SMB owners and leaders. This is an episode you will need to listen to a number of times to get all the nuggets. Anyway, that's enough from me. Let's get started. On with the podcast.
Welcome back to the Better SMB. I'm David Altina.
And I'm Rob Bull.
Today, I'd like to welcome a guest to the podcast. He's worked at places like Deloitte, Vodafone, and since then has gone through a range of marketing roles until 2008. If you cast your mind back, that was when we had the GFC. Netflix was still sending movies by mail. Facebook, they managed to overtake MySpace. And All the Single Ladies was number one on the music charts. Well, a couple of guys got together in Hamilton with $1,500 of startup cash and created a way for anyone to create a website, keep it up to date, and get support. Now they like to say they create beautifully simple websites, and that business is now what's called Rocketspark. I'd like to welcome Grant Johnson, founder and CEO, to the podcast. Welcome, Grant.
Thanks, David. Yeah, thanks for the intro. It's always interesting to see if I haven't provided an intro to someone, what they actually pick out and what they have to say. So thank you. Good to be here. And hey, Rob.
A little bit of
Hello,
web
Grant.
trolling. So, Grant, how and why did you get into the business you're in? What's the background there?
The background to starting Rocketspark, I guess in the step before that, you mentioned Deloitte. I'd started as an accountant, sort of lasted 1 year, and it kind of wasn't for me. It was very repetitive. Things like Xero didn't exist. You were doing really a lot of manual tasks, and it's like, there's got to be more to life than this. And I'd studied marketing as well. I moved into product management roles, and sort of my last sort of role actually wasn't product management, but customer experience. And then my wife got a job with the America's Cup in Valencia in Spain. So it's kind of on the go at the moment. Actually, it's back in Spain, the America's Cup. And I didn't have a job, but she had this amazing job. I'd finished kind of marketing contracting. And while we were there, got chatting to my brother and a couple of his friends back in New Zealand. And my brother, he was designing websites for small businesses. And his two friends, Lee and Richard, would code them up. And with my background in product management, I was like, well, maybe there's a product here. The idea of SaaS or any of this stuff, I was like, hey, I think we can build something that's better. And kind of that's what we did. We just set about. It was very naive. We kind of went and rang sort of 10 friends and family and said, hey, what are your problems with getting websites? And they're like, it's difficult, it's expensive, and it's if you need help, you can't get great help. And so we thought, well, we can probably make something that's really simple. And if you're stuck, we'll help you really well. And that was kind of how we got going.
So at that time, what was your vision? And then how's that changed over time?
Yeah, our vision, the nice thing about living in Valencia in Spain, and we lived right on the beach. So kind of America's Cup were nice in terms of providing a good accommodation allowance, and push a button in the morning and the blinds would go up, and there was the Mediterranean right there, and I was learning to kite surf and occasionally be some waves come. And And I was like, man, how awesome would it be to run a subscription business? And I'd seen at Vodafone that, you have 1 million people spending $40 a month on their mobile account, and then that's like 40 million bucks. And it's gone, life's not all about money, but I was like, that sounds pretty good. If you can kind of get subscriptions going, then that gives you more time for improving your kite surfing, skiing. I kind of love the outdoor pursuits. And that was kind of the early vision, was actually, what's a subscription business that we could do? And that was kind of harnessing Jeremy, my brother's strengths, and his two friends, Richard and Lee's strengths, to create this product. But what's fascinating to me is that as time went on, like, while I've never worked harder, running your own business, you're kind of tough boss. People say, how do you stay motivated? So it's kind of interesting. Like, it's harder to switch off, I guess. But yeah, really just it was super motivating to kind of create something. How the vision changed over time is it went from creating a business that was about us to, as we started to get clients and seeing how we could actually genuinely help them in their journey, that was actually way more motivating. Like, these little businesses that were kind of having challenges with getting online, and would help them get online, and then they were in control. Like, we had people saying to us, I ended up staying up all night working on my website because I finally felt like I was in control. And so that's quite a buzz. Like, so it went from being about us, and then the vision kind of changed again, where in terms of like the core product was this website builder solution. But probably 2016, you kind of, old school when you're saying we started chatting about this in 2008, but around 2016 we started getting graphic designers using Rocketspark for their clients, and what they said was they loved how simple it was to use, and the support was amazing. That's what their clients were talking to them about. So those kind of founding principles of Rocketspark were recognized by these graphic designers, and we were like, cool, like, if they want to use our product, and essentially they become resellers. And so as time's gone on, we've realized that's where a real sweet spot is for us, in terms of serving still the small business client to get online, but it's actually through a channel which is these kind of freelance or independent graphic designers running their own design business. And the vision, I guess, in terms of, it started as like a software product, but over the last few years it's become much more about even just creating community and building community around those designers, because probably 90% of them are women. Many of them are mums with young kids, and their life's crazy busy. And it's actually quite isolating because they're busy doing kind of those duties. And by creating community, we're creating connections, creating advice. And it's kind of, it's almost like now there's the software play and providing software, but also creating a community, which is really fun and motivating as well.
Do you find that you get quite a lot of collaboration through that community between those mums who are building websites, and now they're starting to work together as well?
Yeah, it's quite an amazing community, and that they're so supportive. And there's probably enough business to go around that actually, if you're good at what you do, they don't actually see each other as competition. It's kind of become almost a bit of a cliche phrase of community over competition, but we really see it. And I remember a guy came to one of our, like, every few years we'll do a conference, and a guy had come out of a big marketing agency, and he was like, what the heck is it with all these people sitting around tables helping each other in business? And essentially they're kind of like competitors, but they're actually helping each other. And it was quite baffling to him that, and that was just how it was to us. And even in our business, we just actually genuinely enjoy helping people in their journey. So to us, that was just, isn't that how it should be? So it was interesting having an alternate perspective that actually this is not normal, and it's really nice.
It kind of goes along the themes, I call it co-opetition, right? Where you can, sometimes you compete, but actually you probably partner, and together you can actually deliver more.
Yeah. We've been doing these brunch events, sort of brunch by the beach, and we actually tested the first one over here in Papamoa, where I live in the Bay of Plenty. And we got a guest speaker, like a well-known kind of agency owner, and it was talking about sort of award-winning work that they'd done. And then we had a panel of these designers, and they're kind of at different stages in their journey. But at each stage of their journey, they were able to share something that was really useful and helped. And what we learned, and when we were running a design business, is that so much of the success came down to really refining our process. And we were just fanatical about getting the process right. And I was telling someone the other day, it kind of blew their mind, but as a little team, we had about 30 web design projects on the go concurrently, which to your average kind of freelance design business, they're probably doing maybe 4 to 6 a year if they're going really well. And our team that was actually working on that design side of our business, it probably was the equivalent of like 1.2, probably at its peak, maybe 1.5 people. but because we were so focused on every step of the journey. And so now we're kind of sharing that knowledge, but also drawing designers together to sort of draw that knowledge out of the designers and share it back into the community.
So for Rocketspark, and you're leading that business, how do you measure productivity day by day, week by week, year by year?
Yeah, and probably it is about measuring lots of different things, and we've kind of gone in different stages. Like early on, it was just like we just need to get this thing built. So it was just like, how do we do it? And it was kind of just project management, kind of, I was kind of old school, like get the Gantt chart out. But I've actually found that if you don't actually have a plan, we were just, even back then, kind of the SaaS sort of project management tools didn't really exist. But so one was just, are we getting the projects done? Are we delivering on time to actually build the software? As time's gone on, there's like measures like where we actually look at our gross margin. So it's a key measure for us of like, are we supporting our clients efficiently, and are we doing that well? That's not about compromising the service standards at all. We had a measure, because we're so service focused, we had a measure for a while that we really honed in on, which was cases per customer in terms of support tickets per customer, because what we wanted to see was that could we grow efficiently? So as we grew, were the number of cases that each support tickets or support requests, were they actually reducing? And we found when we did a massive drive on creating help guides, and because we were focused on that measure, we saw that as we wrote these help guides and really became fanatical about answering every little question that someone might ask us, that our cases per customer really, really declined. And then it kind of started to plateau, and we're like, okay, we're kind of starting to max out what we could achieve. But we're sort of in a fresh phase now where the team are really starting to adopt sort of various tools, like say Story Lane, which kind of gives you like you can sort of click through the journey, and then it creates essentially like a little click journey. And so they're starting to adopt little tools like that. So there's kind of another efficiency drive going on. So our CS team, our customer success team, even though like we've grown well over the time, like the actual, probably over the last 3 or 4 years, like that team hasn't grown in size at all. And it's just at the point now where kind of there's a step change that we're actually looking to increase that team. Yeah, so actually measuring that as an efficiency was a real key one to kind of to scale and maintain really high service standards at the same time.
As the business has grown, thinking back to, well, we just need to get the job done, through to where you are now, what's the importance been for you around adopting good disciplines around business planning, KPIs, understanding, the financial side of the business? Where's all that sit for you in running the business?
Yeah, it's always been quite I guess maybe with my financial and accountant background, was kind of actually understanding the numbers has always been pretty important. But in the last few years, we've engaged with a virtual CFO company, so Oxygen Advisors, based in Auckland, and they specialize in SaaS companies. And it's just been really helpful to kind of just that they take care of kind of building the models and the frameworks, but we're still sort of working with them and plugging in the numbers. And so we've found that by really taking our understanding of our numbers and having someone that's methodically preparing those for us, it means that it's quite liberating, because you feel confident. And my brother, actually, I sent the last month's results through, and he was like, hey, isn't it so cool that we know where we're going, and we can feel confident? Like we're just starting to put the foot a bit harder on the gas and sort of recruiting people into sort of a growth side of things. But we can do that with confidence because we know our numbers, and our, I guess the beauty of a subscription sort of SaaS model is that our revenue is kind of pretty stable. Bit more tricky at the moment because just the state of the sort of the various markets that we operate in, that we're seeing a greater rate of small business closures, and we saw that off the back of sort of COVID, like sort of 2022, 23, where it's like people kind of were in survival mode and they had this appetite to survive, and then once they kind of came through and like the pressure was off, they were like, actually, do I want to do that? And I think maybe that's happening a bit again, where interest rates in a lot of the key markets that we're in, starting to taper. And I think people are probably making those decisions again of like, okay, I was able to survive, had that will to survive, but do I actually want to do this? So we're seeing kind of, but even that, by measuring our churn and churn reasons, we measure fanatically our customer satisfaction with the individual support tickets. And we measure 6 monthly the net promoter score, because we're so service focused that we actually want to understand. So there's the number, and we've got goals that we aim for. And we actually have a Slack channel where real time, anyone in the company can see what the real time the feedback is. And Rob's actually a client, so with long-term client and support of Rocketspark. And so if he ever contacts the team, he'd get one of those surveys. What do you think of, how's Rocketspark supported you with that particular support request? But then every 6 months, he'll also get a survey, and then he can do sort of verbatim notes. And the team know that it's not like we're not perfect, and we'll get bad ones from time to time. Fortunately, way more good than bad. But our expectation as a business is not that we won't get bad ones, because sometimes we can drop the ball, but what action have we taken to improve? What could we learn from that? And we have a bit of a phrase, one of the team sort of invented, called "once is enough," OIE, and we have a little sort of Slack emoji, but it's what's the OIE, the once is enough, that we could have taken to eliminate that from ever happening again. Yeah, it's kind of, and that's helped us in terms of that real focus on that simplification.
I like that. OIA. This isn't website related, but in general, looking at your journey, what are some of the lessons you've learned from that $1,500 startup point, building a business so you could do more surfing and that sort of thing, working at the kitchen table kind of thing? What's your advice for an SMB owner who's sort of in that space, or maybe even that 2 to 5 year space?
There's a few, but really stay connected with your customers, like just continuously listening to them, both in kind of one-to-one interactions, but also what they're showing you with the numbers that you're seeing. So what's happening with churn, what's happening with our growth, what's happening with our customer sat surveys, but also just spending time with them and capturing that feedback. So say Rob with his website, he might go, I'd love to have this feature, like he's doing blogging, and maybe he wants some extra design capability in the blog. If he asks us what that for that feature, and it's not one that we have, the team are really well equipped to capture that straight into a tool we use called Product Board, which captures all the insights. So I think that's probably another aspect of really streamlining the capturing of those insights so that you can actually collate them. And so when we go through our planning processes, we can step back and go, okay, Rob's asked for this feature, 50 other people have asked for this feature. It's probably a good chance that of the 50 that actually asked us, multiply that by a big number, and there's a lot of people that are wanting for that. So stay close to the customer. Probably another one is making sure you've got enough cash to kind of do what you need to do. Like as a bootstrap business, we've always sailed sort of close to the wind. Historically we had, and just over time it becomes too stressful. So just by building sort of financial buffers into the business, it's then given us options to kind of make decisions that are right for the business rather than just what we can do because that's what we can afford. Probably another one that we didn't do this well for years, and just sort of really just starting to find our way in that, is actually getting advisors around us and actually bringing in sort of people that have been there and done it before. And I was actually smiling when I listened to the podcast where David was actually the guest, and you're talking about kind of getting the strategy right. And it's sort of a bit of a journey that we've been on. We've always had the sort of product strategies and customer success strategies, and kind of at a real functional level. And we've kind of had a bigger picture goal of where we want to get to, but actually bringing a real structured approach to strategy. And what we've learned, and still kind of early in this next stage of our journey, but what we're learning is that just by being able to distill that down to the wider team and very kind of what almost seems simple phrases, it's really helping us in terms of how we empower the team to deliver. So that's probably, I wish I had known that earlier on, and it's probably become more important as we're kind of growing, and you sort of go from half a dozen people, and then it was kind of another step at sort of around that dozen people where you realize that actually not everyone knows what's going on. And kind of we're probably, I think we're 19 or 20 kind of employees, a few more roles in recruiting at the moment. And then plus there's probably four or five contractors kind of doing bits and pieces. So at that level, it's just kind of a step change in terms of making sure that everyone's on the same page. So yeah, it resonated when you're talking about that.
So absolutely awesome for advice for SMB owners, because that's what we hope to get across in this podcast. And what your lessons, reflecting back what you could have been really a little bit sharper on. What about you as a leader? I think you made a comment before, it was, the hardest you've ever worked. And I think all of us who are running our own businesses, we get to understand that. How would you recommend, or what did you do to look after yourself as a business leader?
Yeah, that's interesting question. For many years, probably didn't do enough to actually look after myself. Whereas and particularly when I was living in the UK, I was Spain originally, and then in the UK, where the team were back in New Zealand, it was so easy to kind of, first thing in the morning, you'd be waiting for that answer to that question about a product development. How's it going? And so you'd be on there communicating, and then you do your day, and then the team would then come on deck and start replying to stuff in the evening, and it was just wasn't fun. And I think in particularly COVID was very, very busy. Like it was just we'd had a couple of team members, like long-term team members, leave, and we didn't replace them because we thought this is going to be really sticky. Like our clients are hospitality, trades, accommodation, tourism, all the businesses that couldn't trade, and so we didn't replace them. And then it just went crazy. It was very, very busy. So we worked really hard, and even doing like sort of 3 a.m. sort of training sessions with the Xero team in the UK or their customers, and just things like that. We're just super busy, and it was unhealthy. And we actually got someone in to help us in terms of we could see sort of symptoms of burnout. We kind of a bit more grumpy, and you kind of bit thin-skinned, and you couldn't sort of see stuff, and you weren't wanting to do the fun things that you normally enjoy. And you're like, okay, tick a few sort of burnout boxes. We've got to actually do something. And we actually got a guy in who kind of specializes in kind of well-being. And what was fascinating is he spent probably 30 minutes, maybe half, it was like a 3/4 a day workshop with the founders. And that first kind of half an hour to an hour was eat well, sleep well, these sorts of things. And then he was like, now we're going to do a values exercise. And we're like, what? Like we're going to do yoga or something like that. But it was like, if you're not living to your values and they're operating to your values, that's when kind of the pressure and stress comes, because you're not operating in the way that you kind of, I guess, fundamentally built or designed, or how you are. And so we did this values exercise, and what was really cool was that the 4 founders were really aligned on their values, and one of the top ones was freedom. So we'd started a subscription business to kind of create freedom in your life, that it didn't rely on you turning up every day, but we were just working crazy hard and a lot of pressure, and the kind of one of those top values of freedom in your life wasn't existing. So that's probably a long-winded one to start with. And probably the other aspect is just me actually learning and waking up to the fact that just leading is a responsibility in itself, versus kind of random partnerships or critiquing sales and marketing programs and stuff like that. Is actually leading in itself as a job, and setting that strategy and communicating the strategy, and over communicating the strategy, kind of working through the principles. We've been doing some work with a guy, David Leach, who is the CEO of Sin7, so a really successful New Zealand SaaS company, and he's kind of been teaching me about these principles in a book from Patrick Lencioni called The Advantage, and talking about kind of setting a strategy and leading the team, and just so much of it is, I think in that book they talk about the CEO being the chief reminding officer, like that you're literally just continuously reminding. And as we're on this journey, it's cool seeing like the CS people going, hey, simplification is one of our key strategies. I see this path to make this process that's currently manual to make it simpler. And it's just cool seeing that start to come to life as I'm getting, better at being a chief reminding officer, but still early days on that journey.
So when you look at the businesses you're engaging with, what are some of the frustrating things you're always seeing that you just want to go, stop it? Would you guys just stop it?
Yeah, and sometimes it's just started. Like probably like as a digital platform, one of the things we see is that people get overwhelmed and daunted by sort of what it takes to succeed online. And actually, for most, like in our target in the small business market, online success is kind of not that difficult, but they actually just need to do the basics. And we've done with kind of various chains of commerce and digital boost, and we've kind of done these training programs, and here's what to do. And we did this really cool pop-up shop with actually Rob was one of the sort of contributors to that pop-up shop. It was a pop-up sort of, we call it the digital pop-up. And we did a combination of seminars. We told people what to do, and then we did workshops where they could actually put it into action. And because what we'd see is that the workshops were so key, because you do the seminar and they just wouldn't actually go and implement the things that I go, wow, that's awesome. And then you'd see them on the street, a few weeks later, especially being in Cambridge, you bump into a lot of customers just on the street, but they wouldn't actually do the basics. Yeah, so I guess just setting aside the time to do. And saying that too, part of our AI journey now is to look at those things that we're trying to, we were teaching them how to do. Then we're like, actually, what can we build that actually just does it for them? So our first AI tool we launched a few years back was actually like an SEO tool to actually do the search engine optimization. Probably one of the other ones in terms of these small businesses, they actually get in advisors, like people that can help. And we see that in terms of the clients that would say engage a digital marketing company, or even more so with e-commerce clients, if they actually engage someone specializing in that. And I was actually just chatting to a digital marketing company yesterday that popped into the office, and they said like their starting point is $1,000 for any package, because they said we can't actually do a decent job for a small business for anything less than that. We can't actually, with kind of integrity kind of do it. But they said they only had one client that was on that bottom package, because once they saw the potential, they actually moved on, and they're spending several $1,000s a month and upwards, because they've actually trusted and engaged the right expert. It's murky though, like it's tricky to find. Probably the last one, there's probably a whole heap, but the other one is just engaging in the software tools that can help you do your job better. So your accommodation business, like, have you actually looked at online booking systems? Your hair and beauty, have you looked at, and that's where New Zealand SaaS products really good, like hotel booking and stuff. You've got Preno, and then hair and beauty, you've got Timely. Connect up these systems, and we see those clients that use those systems typically are going much better. But it is a real challenge to know which systems to use. That's probably if I wasn't running Rocketspark, it's probably be one of the challenges I'd actually look to see if I could solve, is how to connect small businesses in a really efficient way, because they don't have the budget to say go and engage a consultant for 10 grand that could do this amazing implementation of your point of sale system. I think that's probably a real opportunity.
So you've managed to cover what my next question was, which was around investing in experts. So I'm just going to change this up a little bit. So rather than how can owners use experts to accelerate their progress, because you've kind of covered that, what's the difference you see between the businesses that do engage the experts and those that don't?
Probably one of the key things is they end up just focusing on what they do well. So they're not distracted by the things that they don't do so well or find confusing. And so by focusing on what they do well and playing to their strengths, they can then actually grow and accelerate and actually have a more enjoyable business as well, because they're actually doing the stuff that they enjoy. I think when we arrived back in New Zealand, and my wife and I, together with another couple, set up an online pet store, and it was sort of natural pet products and high welfare sort of stuff. And we actually engaged a digital marketing company. I know enough to be dangerous with digital marketing, but just by having them take care of it for me, and then you still had to have your hands on the wheel. You had to sort of see the results and understand them and go, what about if we tried this? And then they go away and try it. But the end result was like so much better than what we could have done ourselves. So it was kind of interesting actually sort of walking in the shoes of a client and actually investing the money. And this was like a very low funded kind of side venture, but you spend a couple of grand a month on digital marketing for this little venture, and it easily paid for itself. Yeah. I don't know, has that answered the question?
Yeah, I think you're pretty good there. There's heaps of people out there, like every time I'm on LinkedIn, I see a new coach who's going to help me with this, or an advisor with that, or a consultant who's going to something or other else, right? And everything's getting so niched now. You've got specialists in every area. What are some of the kind of tricks or tips you've got to navigate that swarm?
Yeah, good, really good question. It's like, say, what I was just saying about like finding someone that can help you get the right advice and the right solution for, say, the software that's going to help you be better. That's tricky, but I think just being clear on a point of difference. Like, it's kind of interesting, and this is not to kind of butter you up, but it was like, I was saying to one of the team, I've like been invited onto a podcast, and I was like, I don't know if I've ever been on a podcast before. And they're like, who's doing it? And I was like, it's Rob Bull and David Altina. And I was like, Rob Bull, do you know him? He's the guy that does the Lego stuff. He goes, the Lego guy. I know the Lego guy. And like, that's kind of, it's kind of interesting that you kind of got a point of difference, that even though he didn't know when I said Rob's name, then when he said the Lego, that's the Lego guy. And you go, sort of, you see Rob posting on LinkedIn as giant Lego blocks. And so I think just being really intentional, I guess, about a point of difference. But then, it doesn't just stop at the Lego. It's about having a product that then people actually enjoy and appreciate and can create the value, that then they are those net promoters. On your net promoter score, you don't know, NPS is worth checking out and understanding, but they're kind of rating you 9 and 10 out of 10. Those are the ones that unprompted at a barbecue will go, hey, I had this amazing experience, and they'll share unprompted. Yeah,
And you
but
need to do
it's
Lego
tricky.
Serious Play, I tell you.
Yeah.
It's the second time I've heard today is, oh, Rob. Who's Rob? Oh, the Lego guy. Yes. And one of my clients know me as Lego Rob. So, even though I do 80% of my work is lean, it's just that point of difference to sort of get me out of that noise space, right?
Because once you can have a conversation, that's what we're finding with these sort of brunch events, is once people have a conversation and realize we're actually just genuine, authentic people that want to help them in their journey. And by the way, we've actually got a really good software product that once they experience it, they go, oh, actually, I do like using that better. It is easier to use. And then they contact the customer success team and they go, oh, actually, you picked up the phone. Like, you actually have a phone number. We can ring you. I was like, whoa, it's pretty flash.
You and I are both pretty much firmly in the technology space. And technology sits really under innovation from my perspective. Given the challenges we've got in New Zealand in the SMB sector, given how far behind we are with our productivity, what do you think can be done across our SMB sector to lift digital awareness, maturity, and capability?
I think one of the areas is starting really young and like right at sort of school level. And it's something that we've been actually become more intentional about doing in terms of taking on, even from Cambridge High School, like interns have been doing sort of internship programs, but then what can you do at scale? So things like Shadow Tech is run by Women in Tech, which is connected to NZ Tech, running these days where primarily focused on young girls to come into a tech company and actually experience a day in the life. And I think that's really cool because like my first job as an accountant, or first kind of job graduating, was an accountant. I'd never stepped foot in an accountant's office before the first day. And then I walk in and there's cubicles and I'm like, oh, shucks, what have I done? It's like, I think showcasing to young people that there's a way. We've been providing our platform also to like the universities. So University of Waikato, Wintec, Victoria University in Wellington. They use the platform sort of at that university level as well. So I think probably the other aspect is sort of showcasing that in careers in tech are not just technical roles. And actually, one of the teams going on a panel that Icehouse Ventures are doing with Soda in Hamilton, the sort of business, how do you describe them, kind of incubator support network run the RBP program. And they're actually doing a panel, which one of our teams speaking at, around moving into startups. So what are the opportunities in startups? And so Carlos, who leads our CS team, came out of travel. We've just recruited a partner success manager who came out of retail. Hayden, our CRO, he was at Xero, but also prior to that, he was an accountant. So I guess showcasing, which is what Icehouse and Soda are doing, is showcasing you can actually transition across. And I think storytelling. So I think, when New Zealand was kind of, I guess we still are, but, there was a housing shortage. We need people in trades. There was kind of a lot of talk about careers and trades and how we could fund that. Kind of as a tech organizations, we actually need to look at how we can do it. And it's kind of with KiwiSAS, I guess they were kind of starting to do that a bit as well, like kind of creating a bit of an industry movement. So kind of as a small software company, it's probably disappointing that ended, because I could see that potential to create some noise. And like with technology, it was like, I think we're third biggest exporter now, just behind tourism, and really sniffing at the heels of tourism. And at the rate we're going, and New Zealand creates good products, and particularly good SaaS products. I walk out of our office in Cambridge. The second business I come across, which is right at our front door, is a little cafe. They're a client. Walk across the street to the pharmacy. They're a client. You've got those people there that if you're rubbish, everyone knows about it. Like your mum knows, your nana knows, auntie, dad, they know you're rubbish. So I think in New Zealand, you actually make good software, and there's good opportunities. Yeah, I think telling the stories, and while it's kind of sad, say with KiwiSAS going, there's also a responsibility on just us as an industry to kind of tell those stories and make some heroes of the people that have been doing good things.
Getting down to the micro level, what digital skills or knowledge should our SMB owners be aiming to upskill in? It's so broad. Where do you think they should be spending their time?
There's probably just a few really simple ones. And one is just looking at the homepage of their website as a starting point. Like, does it actually, if someone was coming there, would it actually engage someone? Is it showing photos of themselves and the team, or is it these kind of weird kind of plastic stock photos of a plumber in perfectly ironed overalls that doesn't look like they've ever, unblocked the dirty drain in their life. It's kind of, I think, authenticity in terms of actually looking at a homepage. And we've got resources on that of like, the essentials of an effective homepage. So really thinking about the user journey. Probably the other big one is just understanding how to get found in Google. And it seems like this big mysterious thing, but really it's just making sure that you're answering the questions that people are searching for. So I've talked about plumbers a few times, but someone's searching for, how to unblock a drain, and you've got the answers to that and go, well, actually, that's still a stinky, messy job. Do you want us just to do that for you? But you're just answering the people's questions and making it kind of location specific. So you want to unblock a drain in Papamoa, New Zealand. Okay, cool. It's probably just following not getting caught up in all the technical stuff and ignoring the people that call you up every day saying, hey, I can get you to the top of Google, and just doing the basics. I think there's a new one too that's coming with AI. It's just really just knowing how to use the tools that are available to you. And it's getting quite exciting in terms of what we've built into our product, so that almost the small business owner, they don't even have to think about what to do. It's just, they just tell us, okay, I'm a plumber in Papamoa. I want to be found for these services. And then we go, okay, cool. We've made that for you. And here's 5 suggestions that you could do now. Would you like us to do them for you? Yes, I would do it. So I see that kind of, so then they can just focus on doing their plumbing business.
Some really good conversations there, Grant, and really appreciate sort of even just sharing your journey. It's really interesting, certainly as a customer of Rocketspark, and obviously people will understand that's where we first met. I'm sitting here going, I probably should become a non-seller, because out of that first one, there's about 3 or 4 others that are now popped up that are related to Plexus, which is really awesome because it is an easy platform to use. What I picked out over the last 40 minutes or so of conversation is community over competition. I know David talks about quite a lot as well. That's really powerful, because I think you're right. If people are doing things well, there should be enough work out there for the good players anyway, not the sharks. One statement, and this is the lean guy of me coming out and the process guy, but you made a comment of fanatical about getting the process right. And I think that's a really good lesson for our listeners and anyone playing in the SMB market, no matter what sector it is. Having your key indicators, you talked about those support tickets per customer, being fanatical about the customer experience. And I agree, learn that NPS score. When I first came across it, it was this big scary thing, but now I understand whenever I get a survey and it's 0 to 10, I know exactly what I'm filling out. And the fact is, you've got to score 9 or 10, but the team has to work hard to achieve that goal and listen to the feedback. And that's where I think the next one was, what actions can we take to improve? And that's the continuous improvement guy. And that once is enough, stop that firefighting, invest that time into solving those problems, because we don't want to do it 2, 3, 4 times. So, and the chief reminding officer, I think I made a post around that on LinkedIn a couple of years ago, because that's what you are, continually reminding people about the direction, what we're here to do, the problems we're trying to solve for clients. So I think I got a lot out of this, just listening to it and just refreshing some of the things I've got to do. And certainly going back to my own homepage, which is always a work in progress, right? And I think my final comment is there's a couple of opportunities there that we can actually make decent people out of accountants. They don't all need to be in the office doing the numbers. So I think well done for using that base and actually doing something pretty awesome. That's my summary. What about you, David?
Yes, I found it just quite interesting. You go from bootstrapping in the America's Cup and Valencia, to building the financial buffers that give you that security with the business, so you're not just living basically hand to mouth, but needing to then focus on personal well-being, moving your measures around productivity, how you've gone from we've just got to get the job done to actually building world-class customer experiences and understanding net promoter score and why that's valuable. A lot of takeaways for me. I had, the once is enough, importance behind knowing your numbers, the fact that even given the maturity of where your business is, that you've brought on a specialist advisor in that CFO space. Super interesting. And then because they're a specialist in that SaaS side of things. They're seeing more businesses and they're bringing that knowledge to you, right? Getting the basics right. That's a big thing I focus on with people, focusing on what you do well. And then shadow tech, which sounds dodgy, but actually being able to do the ride along, like people who want to jump in the police force, they do a ride along and they see, is this something I want to do all day? I know if I'd done the ride along, I probably wouldn't have picked the first job I picked out of school. So yeah, plenty of great takeaways for me. And then the last piece, checking out your homepage. Is that the shop window you want to portray for your prospective customer? I think that was great. So yeah, thank you very much for your time and for those insights.
Thank you. And there's one thing too, just to add in is just don't die wondering. There's so what we see across, we get to see across literally thousands of small businesses, and often they're not the most amazing business operators, or even sometimes not the most brightest or amazing, but the difference is they actually just gave it a go, and then they've actually realized that they've got real skills. And so it's kind of don't die wondering, actually, that idea that's in your head. And it's interesting you mentioned about launching in the GFC and launching at sort of those tough economic times and people losing their jobs. Often that creates innovation and people actually go, well, actually that was the impetus to start something. So yeah, it's probably the last thing. Don't die wondering, give it a crack. Thanks for having me along.
I think we can wrap that up with don't die wondering, mic drop.
Awesome. Thanks a lot, Grant. And thank you for coming along and just sharing some of your wisdom, your experience and knowledge that you've got.
Thank you. It's fun. This is kind of, just the questions you're asking kind of prompts a bit of a trip down memory lane that you kind of feel the old filing system kind of clunk away for a bit, but it's it's fun. So thank you. Yeah, and well done. Like it's such an opportunity to improve the productivity. Like it's just New Zealand is just the fact that we're so far below, and we're kind of, you think of the number rate wire, and it's almost like personally embarrassing that we're a country of kind of clever, practical people, that our productivity should be so low. And it's probably a fair reflection on where we've focused our energies in terms of even our export revenue and just what you can achieve with technology. I think is it 2030 that they're saying it'll be the biggest, like, technology? I wouldn't be surprised if it even happens sooner.
Awesome. Thank you.